Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida. Dude, I'm telling you, dude. Dr. Narco Longo came on and dropped the hammer of the god.
America's mother, daughter of Atlantis. God sent the weatherland. The devil sent the Spanish. Florida is Eden, the fountain of youth. Kali is deception. So Florida is the truth.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Dr. Narco Longo.
Florida, it is everything. There's too much truth bombs being dropped. I can't digest it all.
Old World, Florida.
Please welcome Dr. Narco Longo.
Yo. Let's see some oranges in the chat, y'all. I want to see an orange title if like in The Shining when the elevator opens, that much orange juice coming out. Okay. Well, good night, everyone. How's everyone doing? I'm joined by a favorite of the channel, right? My beloved Juan, the chosen Juan. So what's up, man?
What's up, dude? Thank you for having me, man.
Oh, I'll have you any day of the week, Juanito. But the Esoteric Expedition of Florida Everglades. And that's just a title I came up with, but Juan is going to be talking about something really interesting tonight. And that's the little known expedition, the Ingraham Expedition. And I won't spoil any more than that, but I'm excited for it. So what's up, Juan?
Not much, man. Yeah, I'm excited to present this because this is something that I stumbled across right when I've been, when people ask me where they should begin research, I always tell them, right, a lot of people have said this before, like in your own backyard. And Florida is rich in history. And for a while, when I had started podcasting, I ignored Florida for a long time. And when I started to dig at the history of Florida, I was like, dang, there's a lot here to really pull at. And right, doing research, I came across this, and it's really not talked about or referenced because it was intentionally kept secret. Now, why was it kept secret? We can all use our imaginations because no one really knows. So let's get started. But yeah, look at this dude's stash, bro. How awesome is that stash? I was watching Jumanji last night with my son, and he kind of reminds me of the guy the hunter that's trying to hunt the, what's the guy's name? I forgot the actor's name. Is it Robin Williams? Is that him?
Yeah, he's in that movie.
He kind of looks like him there. But so the Ingraham Expedition, the occulted expedition through the Florida Everglades, you've never heard of. Now, there's been a couple of expeditions done. One major one, which I think you and I have talked about the person that is related to it, because I'm going to paint a picture here. I'm going to talk about the Everglades a little bit. I'm going to talk about their obsession with wanting to drain it for a long time. There was also that canal that they wanted to build through the center, right near the Panhandle. They wanted to build a canal that literally cut the the state off, right? The Florida, the phallus of the U.S. They wanted to cut it off at the shaft, if you will, right?
They wanted to circumcise us.
Well, you said it, not me. So, but this is a cover story, Longo. This is a cover story. Now that I have everyone's attention, what I really want to talk about is gonna be, hold on, the Florida squallies, bro. Okay, do pig people really live in Florida? Now, this is a story, and I'm just kidding. Okay, this is a little joke, but there's a local legend, right? That there's these pig people living near the Everglades, bro. Okay, so it's called the Florida squallies. Now we're gonna start with this is a little fun, right? We're gonna start off to loosen up the Longo. I know Longo's been podcasting all day. Let's loosen it up, bro. So there's this local legend of half pig, half people, humanoid things that are in the Everglades. Now, we know that the national parks are probably something that, again, in my opinion, is protecting. They're occulting something from the mainstream narrative, and I think that they're hiding either portals or something, right? You have the Everglades, people have been lost there, never to be seen again, right? There's a lot of weird things that happen there. There's also the skunk ape, right? We have the skunk ape of the Everglades, and there's this local legend near the Everglades in Naples, Florida, right? These short human-like beings with pig-like snouts. And it's that by the Golden Gate Estates, a secluded community located in the heart of the Florida Everglades, is a well-kept secret. So it goes back to the Rosen family had this property, never really did anything with it, and it was unbuilt for miles. Right, a portion of it is the Alligator Alley. Or I wonder why they call it that, the Alligator Alley. Probably a bunch of alligators out there. But again, there was a movie about it, right? These human-like pig creatures. Now, there was said to be a small community of 30 to 50 adult squallies. And I've done a whole episode on this, by the way. I'm sure you can find it somewhere if you Google it. And the origins of this was thought to be of a government experiment gone wrong, similar to the chupacabra or something, right? We've heard all that in the movies and we've seen that. And also the thing that really freaked me out about this was that there's this place called the Lauren Dunn. They put an M on this particular article, but it's a Dunn sanctuary. There was an old man there, right? Who was I think he was a convert. How do they say it? He was for conservation. So he was all about conserving the land and all this stuff. But supposedly somebody called a scientist or a security guard, right? And he would shoot at you if you were to go on the land. But there's an actual place, and there was an actual guy who lived out there. Okay. And actually this article was written January 24, 2023 when I pulled it up, which I thought was really funny. But then this guy, this was in 2017, he lived out there. The Nath Lor Rendon Wildlife Sanctuary in rural Collier County. So this guy was a zoologist, Bob Gore. So supposedly he had posted no trespassing, keep out. And he claimed it was his domain. Anyways, that was a fun little thing, right? The pig people.
Now, Juan, did this gentleman own any pigs, perchance?
I'm not sure.
And did he have a wife?
Listen, dude. I see where you're going with this, right? Alchemists do weird stuff when they're alone out in their Everglades home, right? Look, they're in an old Florida stilt house he designed. Look, Narco Longo, old Florida house. I mean, put two and two together. I don't know, bro, but I think he lived there by himself. And it's supposedly how the story goes that he was driven out and then he was found wandering in Miami somewhere, delusional. And then the rest is history. Again, it was really weird. So again, just some lure, because me being an outdoors, not, an outdoorsy person, I've been out to the Everglades numerous times. I've fished out there. I love it out there. It's a peaceful area, and it has, right? You have legends of Al Capone having some sort of lost city out there. They were using it to smuggle moonshine, I believe, at one point. So the Everglades does have a lot of history. Now, I wouldn't go as far to say, I've read that there are old indigenous cities that are lost. I mean, if you look at the the Amazon rainforest and how they're uncovering entire cities and complexes out there. Now, would I go as far as saying that that happens in the Everglades? I don't know. Now, there is a channel that does that though, and I mean that could be pareidolia, right? Where you look at something and it kind of resembles something else. That I think that's what happens there, and especially when you're looking at things through Google Earth and Google Maps, things will start to morph into other. And when you're looking for something, right, to satisfy that confirmation bias, you're going to start to see things. So again, Florida pig people, real or not, I don't know. Maybe this guy was an alchemist and he was doing some freaky stuff out there. Who knows? But the Henrys of Florida, I had a longer list at one point, and I kind of took some down today as I was remembering them. I'm sure that there are more. I couldn't remember any more of them. The main one really being Henry B. Plant and Henry Flagler. Those are the two main ones. And then Henry S. Sanford, right? Sanford, Florida. You have Flagler County. You had Henry M. Flagler of St. Augustine. He's the one that really, the robber baron that pushed down all the way to Key West. Longo and I have done numerous episodes covering some aspects of his life, but we could probably do an entire episode on this dude's life. And we did that video, right? Over at the Whitehall estate. The video with the tree at the outside of it.
Yep, Whitehall with the kapok tree.
Mm-hmm. With the kapok tree on the outside of it. You can watch that video. You have Henry T. Titusville. You had Henry A. DeLand, Florida. Henry Clay County. You had Henry B. Tootle, which is the mother of Miami. I forgot her name. Julia Tootle, I believe it is. So that was her mom. And then Julia Tuttle or Tuttle, whatever. That's her dad. And he owned, the reason that she came down to Miami was because he owned property there. And then when he passed away, he passed it on to her. So that's how you have that connection there. And then Henry Ford, he was part of, right, with Thomas. Was it Thomas Edison that was out here too? With the over by the Coruscants?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So these are some of the Henrys, which is a really interesting connection because Henry means he who rules in a line, right? I see the locomotive as a sort of alchemical vessel type of thing where they're right? The fire is transforming the coal to power, steam, whatever. And these guys were robber barons. They had railways everywhere. And that's really what set forth and was at the forefront of pushing into that last frontier that was Florida. Nobody wanted to touch Florida until these guys came along. So we have some sources and further reading. These are some books I've referenced. I've read this one in its entirety, and I use Scribed, and these are really great books if you want to learn the history of Florida. And right, they have the two Henry Flagler. He's got a really interesting background. He was actually the right-hand man of John D. Rockefeller. And Rockefeller actually gives him credit for everything that Standard Oil became. So he was the mastermind behind Standard Oil. And again, John D. Rockefeller, one of the more influential people in history, infamous, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Henry Flagler. And then also, this is a really great paper done by this guy. I forgot his name. I thought I had it in here. Anyways, his last name is mentioned, and I found it interesting because there was a mention in the Ingraham Expedition. Now, I don't know if he was family to him, and that's why he wrote about it. But surviving hell to gain paradise, the Gilded Age conspiracy, and a secret world expedition that turned Florida upside down and led to the taming of America's last frontier. You can find that online, and there's a lot of stuff in here. As far as the Ingraham Expedition goes, this would be the guide to really, if you want to dive, there's like a 400-page paper. I've read it a couple times, and yeah, so just further reading for those that want to dive deeper. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, and I'm going to be digging deeper on some aspects than others. So, do you want to add something, Longo?
No, it's a mouthful of a title, man.
Yeah, it is, bro.
Surviving hell to gain paradise makes me think of Finland to Florida, but
and it was a thesis too, a dissertation or something like that for the guy, and he wrote it in 2019. But yeah, check it out. I've sent it to you before, Longo. There's a lot of great information in there. So the Florida Everglades natural region, tropical wetlands in the southern portion of the U.S. state of Florida. Begins near Orlando with the Kissimmee River, and then it goes all the way down to Lake Okeechobee, and then it continues all the way down. I mean, it's huge, right? Water leaving the lake in the wet season forms a slow-moving river 60 miles wide and over 100 miles long, flowing southward across the limestone shelf of Florida Bay at the southern end of the state. Now, the Everglades, they'll say it's a swamp, but from what I've read, the water needs to be more stagnant for it to be considered a swamp.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, the Everglades are constantly flowing out water, and it's constantly being replenished. So is it technically considered a swamp? From what I read, no. So, but I mean, every time you think of Florida, you think of like swampland, right? So
Right, yeah.
we have flooding in the wet season and drought in the dry season. So it only has two seasons according to what I've read. And here's a picture of it. So we have, right, Kissimmee River here. You have I've fished this lake a bunch. Lake Toho. You have West Lake Toho up here somewhere. East Lake Toho. And then it goes down to Lake Kissimmee. I've fished this a bunch. And you go all the way down. And again, it's constantly flowing. And this is the Everglades here. Really, the Everglades National Park is this whole section here, right? And then this is a map from forget the year, 18 something, but it's of Key Biscayne. All right, you have the bay here. Another aerial shot. I mean, look how huge this is, bro. I mean, to think that there's really, you can't do anything with this land. And that's why they were so obsessed with wanting to drain it, because they're like, look at all this land that we could use, we could repurpose. Because from what everyone said, it's some of the richest soil that you'll ever find anywhere, right? The soil is rich. I mean, they plant sugarcane and everything there, but there's a quote in here that's like, I've bought land by acres, land by feet or something, but never land by gallons, because it's all underwater. So we have Harry Truman dedicating the Everglades National Park, December 6, 1947. And then here's another picture, just like the flow of it, right?
Hey, right where Lake Okeechobee starts pouring down, literally right there at like the drainage spot is where pretty much some of America's most productive farmland.
Yeah.
And that is just like shoulder to shoulder, squeezed together cropland, farms.
And look at this, Devil's Garden. Interesting name. So the first written record on Spanish maps who had not seen the land before, so they were writing about this place without having, kind of like what I was saying about you look at stuff through Google Earth or whatever and you don't really visit it. And they named the unknown area, and I found this really interesting, between the Gulf and the Atlantic coast of Florida, Laguna del Espíritu Santo. So that's Lake of the Holy Spirit, which I found that interesting. British surveyor John Gerald de Brom, who mapped the coast of Florida in 1773, called the area River Glades. And then the name Everglades first appeared in 1823, although it was spelled Everglades as late as 1851. And then the Seminole called it the Pahokee, meaning grassy water. And it was actually labeled that on the U.S. military map in 1839, although before it had been, right, Everglades. So the indigenous people, if we want to really follow the mainstream narrative, right, it goes back to 15,000 years. And you and I have covered the Bog people, right, that was dated back, 6,000 years, I think it was. And
like
then this is
8,000.
8,000?
Yeah.
So we have here the sections, right? The Tequesta were real big here in this area. And I know you and I have covered some of it. And then from that, we have, right, the Seminole or the Miccosukee.
Miccosukee.
If I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But yeah, this is just a breakdown of the tribes, people of the Everglade area. Now, right, I have the Bog people here, and they label it the Middle Archaic period. That's 5,000 to 3,000 BCE. And the crazy part about this was that they were really preserved to the point where they had their brains. They had, I think, over 150 brains that they pulled from these people, because there was over 160 bodies. So that was the really interesting aspect of the Bog people, which is the Windover archaeological site, which they were going to develop it. And when they were digging out with the backhoe, the guy noticed skulls, human skulls.
Mm-hmm.
And when they went to go investigate, they're like, wait a minute, this isn't fresh. What's going on here? And they were fully preserved. I think it's the oldest DNA, like actual DNA that they have of any archaeological site, like actual like brain matter from it. That was the more unique part of this. So as far as the exploration goes, and I think we talked about this guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, Longo, I think it was the first time that you and your brother and we did that episode. And I think you might have talked about this guy because this guy gets into planes. So Hugh L. Willoughby, right, was an American adventurer known for his Everglades expedition. And this is the mainstream expedition. This is the one that everyone knows about, that's in history. Okay, this Willoughby guy. In 1897, he undertook a canoe trip across the Florida Everglades. And the purpose of the trip was to explore the area in which the Seminole Indians lived, having been driven to hide in the Everglades after the Seminole Wars. And this area of the Everglades had not been explored in previous expeditions, such as that of James E. Ingraham. So this is the mainstream guy that they attribute to going through the Everglades. And nobody ever talks about Ingraham. So he also wanted to study the flora and fauna on behalf of the University of Pennsylvania. They took water samples. Now, again, they're telling us that this is what he wanted to do, right? But what was Juan Ponce de Leon looking for, right, when he first found Florida, right? There's that story, the myth of the Fountain of Youth, right? And I mean, what would be stopping these people from wanting the same thing, right? And they occult it by telling you, no, we're just studying the area, right? We're just studying the plants, bro. There's nothing more to that. So always keep that in mind whenever it comes to these people. And he had been taught the secret of traversing the Everglades by using a canoe and pole rather than a paddle. So the indigenous people knew how to navigate these waters because they've been doing it for hundreds of years before they were driven out. And they had taught him, right, the secrets. And it's using a canoe and pole, not a paddle. So he started the journey by making a test run with this guy called Ed Brewer in the area of the Miami River. And Ed Brewer.
Let me stop you for a sec. Ryko, thank you for the $5. Appreciate it, man. Hello from Duval County.
Is that North Florida?
Yep, Jacksonville.
Nice.
I believe, yeah.
Look at, yeah, Jacksonville area. Shout out.
Thanks, Ryan, whatever it is. Rye guy. All right.
So after this, right, he went on towards aviation, right, with the Wright brothers. And this Ed Brewer guy, he comes up later because they reference him in the journals of the Ingraham Expedition. And he attended the 1900 World Fair in Paris, right, Paris, France. And he had this first experience with a flight, taking a balloon ride over the city of Paris. He became friends with, right, Orville Wright, and started experimenting with seaplanes from his home in Seawalls Point, Florida. Was this the guy that we talked about that supposedly the Smithsonian had stolen the first ever plane or something and switched it out? Was it this guy, Willoughby? You're muted, Longo.
It wasn't, but it was basically a peer of Glenn Curtis.
Oh, Glenn Curtis. There we go.
Glenn Curtis,
American aviator. Okay. Yeah, for some reason.
Competitor and later business partner of the Wright brothers. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, this guy had his pilot's license signed by one of the Wrights. In 1909, he designed the Warhawk airplane, which is a tractor engine to drive the propeller. And it was the first airplane where the propeller was at the front of the plane, and was the first. It was the plane with the largest wingspan at the time. So, again, interesting. He was in Florida, and he wrote a book about his expedition across the Everglades, a canoe journey of exploration by Hugh L. Willoughby in 1899. And here you can read, this is also another book you can read. He really goes into detail, and he was all over the place. It was mainstream. This is the mainstream guy. He writes, it may seem strange in our days of Arctic and African exploration for the general public to learn that in our very midst, in one of our Atlantic coast states, we have a tract of land 130 miles long and 70 miles wide that is as much unknown to the white man as the heart of Africa. Okay, so they're comparing it to the heart of Africa. And even the indigenous people were like, listen, no white man is going to be able to traverse the Everglades. Okay, and if they do, it's with the help of an indigenous person.
What the fuck are you saying, Juan?
I'm not saying anything, bro. I'm just saying what they were saying back then, bro. This is a quote directly from him.
My God.
So we have Ed Brewer, and this guy's reference in the Ingram notebooks, the journals. There's 3 different ones. Now, this guy was born in Virginia and lived most of his life in South Florida. He was a hunter-trapper, and I guess he was one of these rednecks because he was one of the only, according to the indigenous people, that had crossed the Everglades, that had gone in and was able to actually come out the other side. People said that right when Willoughby had hired him, they told him that he was a dangerous character, and they, quote, said that no man other than an Indian has ever been through the Glades except one Brewer, who was arrested for selling whiskey to the Indians and released on bond when the Indians, in order to effect his escape, carried him across to Miami. And that's Alonzo Church, 1892, one of the 21 people in the Ingraham Expedition. So he references him in his journal. Go ahead, Longo.
Yiska, thanks for the $5. Great job. A couple nights ago, go check out the talk we did. Go check out the talk she did with Juan and, was it Donut?
Yeah, with Donut.
With Donut, yeah. You did with Yiska. So thank you, Yiska.
Shout out to Yiska.
Love that y'all. Sorry, I didn't even read it. Sorry. Love that y'all are covering my homeland, Everglades. Always.
Yeah, she told me that she had grew up by the Everglades, so she was excited about this episode. But yeah, this guy, Alonzo Church, writing about him in 1892, and they probably should have hired this dude because they almost died a couple times. So he lived in various places, including the 10,000 Islands on the West Coast and in the Long Key region. He was evidently extremely comfortable in the Everglades and spent long periods of time there. He often was employed as a guide in the Everglades. So this was a book written by Alonzo Church of the Ingraham Expedition, called The Dash Through the Everglades, being a full and accurate account of the strange things seen by a party crossing that place, with a very interesting account of their adventures and a record of the great hominy eating done on that journey, all by an observer. Why the long names, bro? What's up? This is 1892. We have the long...
It's Everglades, ever long, slow moving river, won't get to the end. Here, can I say this? Eric the Red, $5. Hey, boys. What's good from Old World, Georgia? Nothing, man. Thanks for the $5.
So in 2022, there was a team of people who redid and followed the steps of Willoughby as a 125th year anniversary. They went ahead and canoed across the same route that he took. This is 2022. This is recently, 11/11/2022. This article was posted. So again, they acknowledge this. They do anniversary trips across the Everglades, but nothing about Ingram. Nothing. And before Willoughby and before Ingram, in 1823, this Charles Vignoles guy had the first documented exploration of the Everglades, and he called it the Neverglades because they never believed that they were ever able to get to the other side, because every time anybody would try to go into the Everglades, they would always turn back around and never make it. So the Neverglades appear to occupy almost the whole interior from about the parallel of Jupiter Inlet to Cape Florida. And he goes on to here. He talks towards the northern end. He says something about the author. The author's last voyage undertaken on the peninsula, that the crossing place the Indians is made in the direction of west of Jupiter Inlet and their travels. And he talks about here in this book, this is him, Observations upon the Florida, 1823. Now, the interesting part about this guy is that, how I mentioned earlier, that the locomotive, the train, is almost like some sort of portable alchemist's lab, right? It's blowing steam. They got the fire, you're putting the coal in there, you're turning it into power, right? There's a transmutation going on. Well, this guy was a railway engineer, and he's known for the Vignoles rail, and hopefully I'm saying that right. He was also a surveyor for St. Augustine, the city of St. Augustine. As it was being developed, he published a map of Florida and a book, which is the book that I just talked about. And he is recognized for this, bro. He's the one that engineered a design of a rail, of a certain type of rail for these trains, essentially. So this guy was going into the Everglades. And I just find it crazy that people that have influenced, right, history as much as they have, were interested in undertaking these feats of going into the Everglades and pretty much risking their lives, really not needing to. Like, I don't think Ingram needed to. He was one of the wealthy elites. And that's the strange part about it, which we'll get to. But yeah, this guy is known for these designs, and there was a few other ones too. So I'm pretty sure you know this guy, Diston, right? He was one of the people, Hamilton Diston, industrialist, real estate developer. He purchased 4 million acres of Florida land in 1881, an area larger than the state of Connecticut, and reportedly the most land ever purchased by a single person in world history. This guy. He was the one that saved Florida from going bankrupt. And because of this guy's purchase, I forgot the name of it. I gotta find it here. The Internal Improvement Fund was able to give incentives to the robber barons, the people, right, Henry Flagler and Plant, to give incentives to build out the railway. So it's a chain reaction, right? These guys are, if it wasn't for Diston, history, would it have happened? Would Flagler had the incentives and the motivation, right? Because they were giving them land in return for every mile of railway that they would lay. Would he have had that access to that? Maybe not. So if it wasn't for this guy buying it, maybe, right, history would be different. Maybe it would have taken longer for Florida to get developed, right? Maybe Flagler wouldn't have made it all the way down to Key West. Maybe Plant would have cut across the Everglades. Who knows? Like, history would be a lot different if it wasn't for this guy. So it's like a chain reaction. And he was the son of Henry Diston, right, who formed Diston and Sons Saw Works, and it was one of the largest saw manufacturing companies in the world. Now, he also wanted to drain the Everglades. A lot of these guys, their whole thing was, let me buy the land and drain it, use it. Now, he was directly responsible for fostering the towns of Kissimmee, St. Cloud, which I'm in now, Gulfport, Tarpon Springs, and indirectly aided the rapid growth of St. Petersburg. Now, there's a little story revolving around St. Petersburg. This is a canal in St. Cloud, right? Dredged by Diston's company, running through a sugar plantation, also owned by Diston near. And then right here, here's the quote. I have bought land by the acre and I have bought land by the foot, but by God, I have never before bought land by the gallon. An Iowa man who won the Boles lottery to buy Florida land, 1911, because it was all underwater. I mean, it was flooded, essentially, is what it was. So he was ultimately unsuccessful. He wasn't able to do it because if you think about it, and you know what I thought about, bro? That episode that we did with the diver that was showing us the underground caves. You're muted, bro.
You're muted, bro. Brett Hemphill?
Yes. What if, dude, hear me out. What if, right, the water table was lower at one point and those were actually caves accessible to people? Like, would that be a possibility at all? And like, there was like I just got done watching some show where they found like 200,000-year-old, a species of hominid, like 200,000 years old or something like that. And they were living underground. They were burying their people underground. And when you saw those rooms, bro, how tall did he say that they would get, the like 100 feet, the ceilings?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the water wasn't there, it's essentially a cave system, right?
Yeah. So warm mineral springs is a good example of this. There's 10, I think the biggest, I don't know, 20.
Would you say it was?
Warm mineral springs. That's the name of it in Florida, Southwest Florida.
Northport?
Yes, sir. So close to where we're talking about right now. I'm very close. And this little bowl-shaped thing, this little hole, like perfectly shaped hole,
Where?
it's a hourglass shape depression, limestone sink, whatever you want to call it. It's this huge, it's a couple 100 feet tall, and that sand pile sticks up at least 100 feet, I think they say. I don't remember.
So it's 160 feet, or well, depending on how far down you go.
That's the farthest depth, 160.
I think it's 200. I mean, if you, because right here,
Right.
200.
Right. Well, I mean, that would make sense. It's very deep. It's very deep.
Whoa.
And it opens up, and then there's lots and lots and lots of different caves. You see how small that person is?
Yeah.
That's a person. So all these people who go in to swim there for the medicinal benefits, they're out suspended over that deep ass hole. It's pretty crazy.
No. That's one of the things. There was a summer, dude, that I visited a majority of the springs, Alexander Springs being my favorite one. And I always have a thing with it's a type of fear where when you can't see the bottom in the darkness, I forget the name of the fear, but yeah, there's something about when you're hovering over the opening of the spring that makes you feel, I mean, it makes me feel uneasy. So seeing this right here, I mean, you don't know what's staring back, bro.
So why this place is so interesting, not only have thousands of Europeans moved to the city just to live there. That guy right there, William Royal. Click on that. That guy, he pulled out skull.
Oh, wow.
He pulled out a skull on live TV. I don't know if it was live, but it was recorded television. Pulled out a skull, dove down on camera, on film, picked up a skull from like a
contained brain matter.
Yes, 10,000 years old. They
Whoa.
say it's probably the oldest brain. Definitely in the Western Hemisphere. Could be the oldest brain from a full-blown human that they found.
What year was that though? Because then that would rival the bog people.
Yeah, it's older. It's a little bit older because it's a lot deeper down. Remember, bog people was, like you said, 6,000. That's like the low end. Then they'll say 8,000 is like the high end. And then the Manasota Key offshore site is Southwest Florida. That is 8,000 because of how far off the coast it is. They're pretty sure that's 8,000. That's the same burial style. blah, 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 blah. War Mineral Springs has extensive burial chambers, ceremonial burial chambers in the
Wow.
nooks. So this main tube goes down, and then there's tunnels going out from that main, I don't know what you call it, cavern, that main central cavern. There's
Bro,
cave.
1959.
Yep. There's caves that go out into other little smaller caves, nooks and crannies. And then in one of those nooks and crannies, behind a stalactite, or I don't know if I said that right, stalactite. I always forget.
It's fine.
It's
you're good, bro.
stalactite. That basically, behind a stalactite, they had a placed, like, human burial, like ceremonially placed burial, and that stalactite formed and dripped for thousands of years when that cave was dry, and then it took thousands of years for that cave to fill up with water. So that's old as shit.
So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that then, right? That these systems, and I mean, for those that haven't checked out the diver video, it's just so mind-blowing where they were putting themselves in. But
it's in my fountain of youth. Oh, that diver, Brett Hempel. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, that video. The idea, again, I was just thinking outside the box of, like, what are these places, right? If it wasn't full of water, and now you're talking about this, where this could have potentially been. I mean, did they live underground? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, there's entire underground forests in different parts of the world. You have Derinkuyu over in Turkey. That's a whole underground complex of cave systems. That's an entire city. So could there have been, right? What's the tribe that talks about the ant people that come out of the ground? The Hopi tribe?
Yeah, the Hopi have something like that. And then there's also man,
and I'm wondering
Micmac have stuff similar to that, but I don't know for sure. But it's I don't know.
It's really interesting though, dude. Yeah, I didn't know about this guy that you just pointed out. That's fascinating. That's a really good find, actually, and I think that's what did I say? 1959 was it? That was a long time ago. So yeah, that was just a thought. And so we have this guy here. When Diston when he had to sell, a lot of these guys, Henry Flagler and Henry Plant, bought up the land for a lot cheaper than they would have. And so he also planned to have a major city to rival Tampa. He founded Tarpon Springs. Is that the one that you always talk about, Tarpon Springs?
Tarpon Springs, yeah. Most Greek city in the Western Hemisphere.
This guy founded that. And it was built by his company, Lake Butler Villa Co. in 1884. And when he realized that Tarpon Springs wouldn't become a metropolis, he decided to establish Diston City further south. Now, in 1885, a doctor from Maryland ruled out the area to be the healthiest in the world. Very fertile, right? You can plant stuff right? It's very healthy. And like how you're saying, that runoff of the Okeechobee rivers, I mean, they're still planting sugarcane there, and it's one of the biggest operations that there is of sugarcane as well. This drew many investors, including F.A. Davis, who would go on to partner with Diston's brother. And this was the guy who provided electricity to St. Petersburg. And they would develop what would become Pinellas County, these two guys, right? His brother and this other F.A. Davis guy. So again, you're having all these different guys pop up. You go, oh, that's why that place is named that, or that's who established that area. And you start to piece together areas of Florida that you wouldn't have otherwise known about. And that's what I love about just digging away at the history in Florida. It's really fascinating. And again, I'm not going super deep on some of these guys. We could come back later and revisit them if we wanted to, right? That's always an option. So Peter Demons was a Russian nobleman right, who migrated to the U.S. in 1881 and became a railway owner and one of the founders of St. Petersburg, Florida, allegedly named after where he had spent half his youth, St. Petersburg. Okay. But in 1886, Diston had offered Peter approximately 60,000 acres to stretch his railway, right, to Diston City. But then when Demon was like, no, I want an extra 50,000, Diston said, no, 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 no. And instead, Demon finishes his railway in what would become St. Petersburg. So he kind of screwed himself there because he goes, I'm not going to give you an extra 50,000 because if the railway comes a little bit close to my city, then I'll be all right. And it turned out that that wasn't the case. But what if he would have given him the extra 50,000 acres? Would St. Petersburg still be St. Pete today? Or would it be named something else? Right? So you start to think of what if this guy was like, no, you know what? Actually, I'll give it to you or whatever it was. And so Plant would eventually go on to buy Demon's Orange Belt Railway due to the debt that he had run up from building right to St. Petersburg. The Bellevue Biltmore Hotel was built along it in 1897 in Clearwater, Florida. So again, these guys they're passing along into what eventually we know Florida to be today. So versus this Demons guy, then it gets passed on to Plant.
So, that's the Peter telling, naming it for another Peter, but secretly naming it for himself. That's actually precisely what happened with the real St. Petersburg. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. The one in Russia, right? That's what happened with that one in Russia. Is it Russia, right? I got that.
Yes.
Right.
St. Petersburg in Russia is named officially for St. Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it was named by Peter the Great.
Interesting.
So Peter naming it for himself. Peter, very Jupiterian thing to do to Jupiter, this inflated sense of the self-importance and elegance. And
interesting. Yeah. So this Hamilton Diston guy is surrounded by controversy, and I've talked about this before. I wasn't sure if it was Diston or it was somebody else. It was Diston. April 30th, had dinner with the mayor of Philadelphia, attended a theater, and the following morning he was found dead at 51. Now, some claim that he offed himself in the bathtub, self-inflicted to the head. And almost every obituary, as well as the official coroner's report, say that he died from heart disease in bed. So there's this conspiracy, like, hey, everything was going downhill for him. He didn't have a way out, right? All the debt that he was in, he had remortgaged everything for the land purchase in Florida. This guy offed himself, 51. And other people will say no. 4 years after he had died was when the banks came a knocking. So again, that might disprove the whole self-inflicted, right, Clinton connection, right? Who knows? The New York Times further reported that several months before his death, he suffered from a bout of typhoid pneumonia. And this is one of two controversies surrounding Diston. The second, and this is the family mausoleum in Philadelphia, I believe. And this guy was a Shmeesh Mason too, by the way. So Diston claimed that he had drained over 30 times as much land as he actually had drained. The problem with that is that when you got the state giving you land in exchange for the land that you've already drained, you could see where that causes a problem, especially if you're relying on paper about it, okay? Because they were giving you X amount of acreage for every 1 acre that you would drain, right? As a way of thanking you, kind of, sort of. It was a deal that they would work out. The same with the railways. For every 1 mile, they would give you 1,300 acres. But you had to do it in a certain time span. And that's how people were being drawn to Florida. A lot of these big money spenders. So in 1884, he had gotten certified for draining at least 3 million acres, right? 1884. And this historian says Diston had spent a mere $250,000 on drainage, less than 7% of the cost of a newly completed Brooklyn Bridge, And the state had already credited him with draining 3 Rhode Islands worth of wetlands. Okay. In 1887, a special state commission reviewed Diston's work. And now the reason for that being was because there was flooding. There was a record rainfall that year. So the land started to flood up again and people started to complain. So this special state commission comes out to review Diston's work. And yikes, they claim that the previous report was incorrect due to the engineers at the time, quote, mistaking a drought for drainage. Damn. And they would only credit him with draining 80,000 acres, 3 million to 80. That's a big difference. Okay. And the state had, quote, mistakenly awarded him 1.2 million acres he had not earned. And this gave Diston a devious character, right? It really scarred his character because they thought that he was trying to con the state pretty much. But what a mistake, from 3 million to 80,000. That's messed up. But again, you could say that the state was being shady too, because now they had all this other land they took back. They didn't have to give it up. And they're like, okay, we're going to rule. So imagine all this before he did the self-inflicted. So people were saying, oh, this dude was depressed. This dude didn't know what to do. And I mean, you could see how he'd be in that position. But again, who knows? So we've paved the way a little bit. We have some of the major characters. Now, who's this James Edmundson Ingraham? Now, Wicked Idea has nothing on this guy. Okay, that's not indicative that he didn't exist. That's not indicative that he, right? If you don't have an article on Wikipedia, I don't have an article on Wikipedia. That doesn't mean I don't exist, right? But you would think that such an influential person, the mayor of St. Augustine at one point, the head of the, I think it's the Ford building company of Henry Flagler, vice president of his railway system at one point, like this guy was top notch. One of the top guys. You would think that he would at least have something on Wikipedia, but he didn't. So look at that stash, bro. He was born November 18th, 1850. What's his sign, dude? You're muted.
He's a Scorpio.
The backstabbers, right?
Yes, sir.
The backstabbers, yikes. Okay. So he was born in Wisconsin, and then his life skips around really from what information is available of him. He moved to St. Louis where he worked as a clerk. His father was a part of the clergy at the Trinity Episcopal Church in St. Augustine. June 19th, 1872, he marries, has 3 children, one of which goes on to work for Flagler later on. And around 1874, he moved to Florida where he worked for Henry S. Sanford as a clerk in a large general store. But there's a large gap in his life from when he was born to when he graduates to then when he moves to Florida. So again, we're going based off of information that's in the newspaper. He also wrote some papers too in regards to plant. He was very familiar with these people. Again, I'm not saying that this guy never existed. I do think he existed, and I do think this happened. But again, the motives behind it might be, these were some of the most secretive people in history. John D. Rockefeller, one of the more secretive businessmen that there was. And along with him, the brains of the operation, Henry Flagler, right, given their one-word answers when they were being questioned by the court, right, during their Standard Oil hearings. And also Plant, which all his records and everything have either been lost or destroyed. Okay, so these were very secretive people. Now, does that say that they're a part of some secret society? I don't know. But, I mean, we have here, Sanford eventually recognizes Ingram's potential and names him general manager. And when Sanford founded his Sanford Telegraph Company, he names Ingram as secretary and treasurer until he needed somebody to lay out Sanford, the city of Sanford, for him. So Ingram spends 8 years laying out and building the town of Sanford, Florida. And he was then put in charge of building a railroad line from Sanford to Kissimmee for the South Florida Railroad. So this guy, he worked his way up the ranks. He was up there. He was one of their main guys, and he had a sweet stash while doing the whole thing. Now, he would go on to become president of Sanford South Florida Company, which would later be bought out by Henry Plant. Henry Plant would buy over 60% of the shares. And now the way that they say that this happened was nice, bro. I like it. What are you doing? Brushing your teeth over there, bro? So he wrote a paper on the interaction between him and Plant when Sanford had introduced them to. And I show a picture of the paper itself here in a second. But in 1892, Ingraham led the expedition across the Everglades with the backing from Plant. And after he reported the results, he was hired by Henry Flagler. So this dude literally comes out of the Everglades after working for Plant and automatically goes and starts working for Flagler, Plant's main competitor at the time. Now that sounds kind of shady. Okay, and there might be a conspiracy. That's where we're going to go here in a second. But from 1892 until 97, he was employed, etc., promoted to land sales. 1915 until 1920, he was the mayor of St. Augustine, home of the Flagler headquarters. Okay, so this guy was president of Flagler's Model Land Company, an officer of several small land companies organized by Flagler. So this guy was like the man for a while. Here he is giving a speech at the unveiling of a statue for Henry Flagler. Okay, I think this is in I want to say it's got to be St. Augustine, but here he is giving a speech. He also spoke at his funeral as well, and he had a building made, bro, which I wanted to make a quick pit stop and look at it. This is the Ingraham Building in Miami. Okay, and this place is still standing today, Longo. So you could definitely go there and probably shoot a quick video or something. But check out, again, the architecture a little bit. I mean, the inside's kind of plain, but check out this design up here, which I found really interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Some good facade.
So this is, again, check it out. 25 Southeast 2nd Avenue, built in 1926. Now, there's no pictures other than pictures of scaffolding outside the building and bada bing, bada boom. That's all we got, right? We only had the pictures with the scaffoldings, and then it's completed. And then here's the description of it. One of downtown Miami's most elegant high-rises. The 13-story Ingraham Building is an outstanding example of the Italian Renaissance style interpreted for a large commercial building. With the rusticated stone walls, wrought iron decoration, double arch windows, and hand-painted wooden eaves, the building evokes the design of the Florentine Palace. The building was constructed for the Model Land Company, the real estate division of Henry Flagler's Florida East Coast Railway. The Ingraham Building was listed in the National Registry of Historic Places in 1989. And check out the architects, bro. Schultz and Weaver, which I think we've talked about those guys before. These guys have done a lot of really interesting work. Not the one up in St. Augustine. I forgot who those were, but I think we might have mentioned these guys before. They also did a couple other places. They did a Biltmore in Tampa and also some tower in Florida. I forget the name of it, but it's really crazy looking. So that was his building. After the introduction of Plant and Ingraham, supposedly in a busy street in Jacksonville by Sanford, right? This was the expedition, bro. That's a walk, dog. That's a ride from Fort Myers all the way across to what is it? Key Biscayne or whatever it was. The mouth of the Miami River. That's a ride, dude. That's a long walk to take. And these guys were, again, going to go through here to survey the land to see if Plant's system, if he, right, that ended around here, if he could cut across and go to the Miami River to where he would build, again, another hotel. Who knows? Like we still don't know why they did this whole thing. Now, the sketch of the life of Mr. Henry B. Plant of Branford, Connecticut. And this is a paper that Ingram wrote. And here is where he retells his meeting of Plant. Okay. Drugs are bad. Yeah, don't do drugs. So, on the day of the introduction, the story goes that Ingram invited Plant on the maiden voyage, right, of the South Florida Railroad from Sanford to Kissimmee. And allegedly, Plant was so impressed that he was like, "Hey, what do you think of if I buy your company out? Like, what would you say to that?" And Ingram's like, "Yo, I mean, sure. Like, if you want to, I think that would be okay." So he ends up buying 60% of the shares, right? Because they were tight for money after finishing this project from Sanford to Kissimmee, similar to Mr. Demon or Demon, whatever his name was. Right, so he buys out 60% of shares, which also Flagler was a stockholder as well in this company too, by the way, the South Florida Railroad, except he was a small-time stockholder at the time. So when Plant buys 60% of the shares, Ingram goes from working for Sanford to working for Plant. And how the story goes, when Henry built his railroad into Tampa, he wanted to further it out. He wanted to go further. He wanted to cut through the Everglades to where the Miami River emptied into Biscayne Bay. And then, right, who better than his little boy, the star of the show, James Ingram, to lead the way with the Corps of Discovery, bro. That was the name of the team that he had assembled to go and do this expedition. I remember the conversation that we were having at the beginning. Is it corpse? Is it core? How do you say it? And they were known as a Corps of Discovery, which I found interesting. You got anything to add?
Hell yeah, man. They're he's probably digging up a bunch of corpses the whole way. You know, every time they dredge, they're pulling up like dozens of native bones. So,
yeah, right. I mean, you think about that aspect of it, of every time that they, I mean, I keep talking about the spring video, but right under our feet could be a 200-foot drop. And I've been laying in bed lately and I've been thinking about what if because there's that story of that guy got swallowed up by the sinkhole while sleeping. They couldn't, bro, can you imagine just laying down? And as you're laying down, there is 5 feet separating you from a 200-foot drop.
yeah.
No, I don't want to trigger anyone's anxiety or anything.
That's what you're trying to do.
I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying that that's always a possibility for if you're in Florida, okay? It's Swiss cheese and there could be cannabis corpse. So, Ingram and a team of railroad men, which is 21 of them in total, mind you, men that had never been into the Everglades, a lot of them weren't even from Florida. They were tasked with determining if a railroad was possible through the Everglades and also to determine the most direct route from departure to the mouth of the Miami River. Along the way, they were supposed to survey. And this is the part where again, I question what the true motive of this was. And maybe what did they find, Narco, that they didn't want to talk about after the fact? They were going to conduct geobotanical, geotechnical, and zoological studies along the way. So again, you're looking for a route, but then you're studying, similar to Willoughby, the flora and the fauna. And then after the fact, you don't talk about it. They don't talk about it, bro. Like after, like there's newspaper articles and they're like, we still don't know what they were trying to do. You know, hopefully they can cut through the Everglades and build a railroad through it. But that's pretty much it. And when they finished, right, so Ingram would go to finish the expedition, which ended in Julia Tuttle or Toodle's backyard, bro. Quite literally. Ended right in her backyard. The mother of Miami. Now, the mother of Miami has to thank Flagler because he was really the one that pumped a lot of money into Miami for it to become what it is today. So again, if Plant have done the same thing if he would have, his railway would have ended there? I mean, maybe, right? But we don't know. And I just think about how different history would be if these guys would have actually gone through there. Now, after he reports that it was impossible, boom, he immediately leaves to go work for Henry Flagler, which was Plant's main competitor at the time. And wrong way. So that looked really wrong for a second. But there's some pictures, bro, that I try to manipulate a little bit, but they're horrible from the different days that they were there. Now, for those interested in reading the actual accounts, which there's some interesting stuff that happened. Let me pull up the actual. So if you want to check out the actual, so there's the typed journals, and then there is these transcribed ones, which I prefer these because there are 3 separate accounts. One by Moses, which was one of the guys that was, he was the scribe pretty much for Wallace R. Moses, right? Moses leading them through the sea of grass. He also encounters a serpent too that was crawling up his sleeve at one point, right? So Moses. And then he was the scribe for Ingram pretty much. So you have Moses' account, you have Ingram's account, and then you have Alonzo Church's account. So there's 3 separate accounts, and some of them write some stuff on certain days, some don't. But you can go through here. This is on the university, the UF website. And again, you can see the actual papers here. This is what it's typed like. But you can see some of them are faded and they're kind of hard to read, like this one right here. It's really hard to read, but you can read the original account if you really wanted to. But it's really cool because you can compare what they were saying, all 3 of them. Okay, and they line up pretty much. But Ingram was like, hey, listen, you guys need to only report facts. Don't put your feelings into it. Ingram in his journal was really dry. Moses kind of had his feelings shine through. And then Alonzo Church, he really put a lot of it. It wasn't supposed to be part of the actual expedition. He had written like a little journal. But there was another guy, Chase, who was taking pictures. But of course, his camera messed up. And similar to how when you take a picture of Bigfoot in the Everglades and your camera malfunctions, his camera malfunctioned too. And the pictures aren't that great. There's a horse in here, shirt tail camp, where one of the guys' shirt tails had caught fire and started burning him up. But I tried to mess around with the contrast a little bit, but they're just really bad, dude. But there was one point where I believe it was either Chase or Alonzo, one of them almost got burnt because what they were doing, bro, they were burning the sawgrass down and they would walk along, right? So they were burning at the same time while they were walking. And at one point, if the wind turns and you're caught in the way of the fire, you're going to get burned alive. And there's a story where one of the dudes almost got burned alive and it was really crazy. And it was a really wild, reading it was really wild. And it would be awesome if they could make a movie of it, but I mean, they probably won't. But one of the things that they encountered, which was really interesting. So March 19th, 1892. Now, I don't know, how old was Osceola when he died, bro? Do you know?
I think he was supposed to not even be 30. Could be wrong.
So they encountered this Nancy with some little girls. And she said that she was the widow of the great Osceola. But my whole thing is, what would the chances of that happening be? encountering the widow of Osceola. Let me find it here. So on one account, they name her Lucy, I think it was one, and then on the other one, they name her Nancy. So called Nancy on here. And then I think it was Lucy on the other one. So yeah, at noon, Lucy, a granddaughter. She says she was the wife of Osceola, the great chief. The great-granddaughter is the daughter of Billy Bowlegs. What were the chances that she was actually of Osceola, bro? So he died in 1838 in South Carolina. This was 1892.
Mm.
So, I mean, was she full of it or not? I don't know. And then Billy Bowlegs was another one, right? Wasn't he a famous indigenous person too?
Yes, it was three. It was three Billy Bowlegs. At least three.
And so at one point, there's a little baby that had not been named. And they named him, they couldn't pronounce Ingram. They said Ingram. And they went ahead and they named him Ingram, right after Ingram, supposedly. And the name Ingram is a not so uncommon name in indigenous tribes of, after the fact, after they had named that one kid Ingram is what they put on here. But I thought that was interesting too. But they encountered very few indigenous people throughout the whole thing. And here's a picture, supposedly. I can make out a woman here and a little girl. And here are the guys standing around. And they see this Minchin guy. This is the name of the author that wrote that paper too, which I think it's him here. But again, I don't know if he was related to him or not, but I found it interesting. So March 21st to April 5th, resting in the Everglades, and then the typical view of the Everglades sawgrass in the background. Horrible pictures. I try to mess around with the contrast.
They're not that bad.
But I couldn't really do much of it. But again, they reference like, yo, these pictures, something happened where they couldn't really see what it is. I mean, and then April 5th, they had arrived at Fort Dallas, the residence of Miss J.R. Tuttle. And then here you have Ingram, Billy Harney, Newman, Miss Julia, Moses, Harry, and then Chase, the guy that was supposedly taking the pictures. But yeah, supposedly she converted like an old fort or something like that to a house or something that she had bought down by Miami. So why was it kept a secret? There are various theories as to why it was kept a secret. Now, again, if you read that article that I gave you guys, that's a good look at that. The radium could have affected the film exposure. So, right, we definitely didn't go to the moon. We could get that out of the way. All right, Simon. So you're telling me when was no, it was 1892. It was a long 1969, I think, is when they said that we went to the moon. I was gonna say, you're telling me you can have clear live stream YouTube quality from the surface of the moon, but you can't get good pictures in the Everglades, bro? But yeah. No, definitely. So why was it kept a secret? Plant wanted to keep it a secret from Flagler to beat him to the mouth of Miami River. That's the theory number one. Theory number two, everyone was in on it, including Flagler, because how the story goes, that Flagler and Plant at one point, they had agreed to stay on their separate sides. They had a secret meeting where Plant said, okay, I'll stay on the West Coast. You stay on the East Coast. We won't cross each other. We're good. They respected each other. They didn't hate each other. Okay, they were friends. They referred to each other as friends. And Henry Flagler was also a pallbearer for Henry Plant when he had passed away. So they were friends. They weren't like mortal enemies, how some people might think. Right, the two most powerful people in Florida. So it was perhaps kept, but then there was also the March 2nd, 1892 ruling, just 2 weeks before the trip, where they had ordered the dissolution of Standard Oil by the state of Ohio for being a monopoly. Now, if they wanted to monopolize the railway system, maybe they were encouraged to keep it on the DL and not tell anybody about it, because again, they would then be ordered to break up the railway system, which they never really did. Even till this day, I think CSX is the one that owns it, which is a huge railroad company nowadays, right? They bought out all of these systems and all of these companies. So these are people who are paving the way for stuff that we're still using today. Maybe not the same railroad, but the same, the companies got bought, and they transformed into these modern day companies now. Theory number 3, they were just secretive AF due to their experiences. Again, Flagler, super secretive. Right-hand man of John D. Rockefeller, Henry Plant, all of his records have either been lost or destroyed. Theory number 4, my favorite, and I put that one on here. They were looking for something else. I feel maybe they encountered something, bro. Who knows? They didn't write about it. We don't know. But what if they did find a lost city or something that they didn't want anybody else to know about? Maybe. And then theory number 5, they got PTSD and they didn't want to talk about that shit because they almost died, bro. And then here we have this. Florida is certainly the poorest country that ever two people quarreled for, and that's the U.S. Army surgeon in 1836. They want nothing to do with Florida at one point.
Yeah, man. Hey, they can stay away.
Yeah, they almost died, right? The crew had no previous experience in Florida. None had stepped foot in the Everglades. They didn't hire local help despite being told about Brewer from Diston's guys. Okay, because where they took off in Fort Myers, Diston had a crew dredging out a canal. And they're like, yo, you guys should probably hit up Brewer because he's one of the only white dudes to ever cross, unless you have an indigenous guy who can take you across. And maybe they were all chosen because they were all sworn to secrecy. We don't know. And this is from the New York Times. Mr. Ingram is loath to tell of the discoveries he made, and he said significantly his accessible companions were also not talkative men. That is March 18th, 1896. Very interesting thing to say, right? Like, hey, we're not very talkative. We're men of few words. Fort Myers Press, 4/21/1892. The object of the expedition is unknown. That was the Fort Myers Press trying to figure out what it was that they were trying to figure out with this expedition. And here another one, right, where they're trying to figure out, and this is as they were doing it. I guess somebody leaked it. The expedition. The trip will occupy a month or 6 weeks, and they had only packed for like 12 days, bro. So the person writing the article at the time was like, yo, this is going to take them a long time. Meanwhile, they were running out of food towards the end. And the only reason that they got saved when they had 2 days of food left was because they encountered an indigenous person. And he gave them the canoe, gave them food, and took them to Tuttle or Toodle's house, whatever. But they were going to quite literally starve to death if they wouldn't have encountered this guy living out there that was close to the Miami River. The mouth of the Miami River. So he knew exactly where they were at.
Damn.
And here I was channeling my inner Ben to find an article. So we have here, again, another article. I believe this was by the Fort Myers Press, where they were talking about Plant wanting to buy land. And at the end they go, certainly a road across the southern peninsula of Florida through the unknown Everglades would be an attractive and romantic route, and thousands of tourists would avail themselves of it. Again, they were trying to see what they were crossing for, and we never found out. October 25th, 1924, Ingram dies of pneumonia, I believe. Yeah, ill with pneumonia. He passes on. He's buried in Atlanta, Georgia, bro. And the Realty Board honors him. Funeral, St. Augustine. Body will arrive from Atlanta in a private car this morning. Afternoon. So Ingram dies. I think he was, I don't know how old he was. His wife died the next year. I have some major events that the same year of the Ingraham Expedition, which I'm sure none of them are, right? The founding of Coca-Cola Company isn't that major of a deal, bro. January 29th, 1892. The first auroral photograph, January 5th, 1892. The first college student government. Rudolph Diesel applies for a patent for his compression engine, the diesel engine. St. Petersburg, Florida is incorporated. First public basketball game, first escalator and first voting machine. Thomas Edison receives a patent for a two-way telegraph. The Pledge of Allegiance is first recited in the U.S., bro. 1892. We have Amalthea, the fifth moon of Jupiter, discovered in 1892. And I thought that was interesting because of the lure behind that. Wasn't she like a cow or something like that? She got turned into an animal.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, and then the first collection of Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, published October 31st, 1892. That's all I got for the slideshow. But yeah, these are some of the quote major events that happened this year that I found interesting. Because again, I think, right, was it J.P. Morgan? Millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. We have the founding of Coca-Cola Company, January 20. Well, what's its sign, bro? The Coca-Cola Company.
That'd be Aquarius, January 29th. That's a good one. Aquarius.
Aquarius, that's water, right?
It's an air sign.
Ooh.
Air sign.
Like carbonated drink, air sign. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, big connection there. Soft drinks. Aerated.
Yeah. So, what do you think, bro? Do you think that they encountered something that they were looking for? Fountain of Youth. I like that comment, the radium comment, where that could have affected the film, right? They were essentially out. I mean, the headwaters of the Everglades has to be a spring of some sort, right? I mean, at its core. So, I don't know.
Yeah, Lake Okeechobee is a big old basin. Pretty much. A big basin of a bunch of aquifer water. And most of South Florida actually gets its drinking water from Lake Okeechobee.
Really?
Even though, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Southeast Florida especially, yeah. Even though we could just tap right into the aquifer, most of us get it piped in from Okeechobee.
I don't know how much of the water I'd want to drink from there. Yeah, I'm just looking at the etymology of Okeechobee because doesn't it mean
big water? Roughly.
Big water, right?
Yeah, big water. Okie is water. This has been a good Greek connection. Okie in Greek-related languages is water, okay, or lake or ocean.
Look at this algae bloom, bro. I mean, I wouldn't want to drink the water from. I mean, look, this is a huge. Have you ever fished on Okeechobee before, bro?
I don't think so.
Dude, the gators out there, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like an ocean, dude. You can't see the other side, which is the craziest part of it, because it's a lake. So you feel like you're out on an ocean. I mean, they got pretty swells, I guess or waves. I don't know what you would call it out there. I mean, when it starts to get really windy, and it's windy AF because again, it's such an open area. But yeah, dude.
Yeah, it is. I know there's a bunch of stone anchors over there too.
Yeah. I think I had somebody message me that they went to San Juan and there was a whole bunch of stone acres too. Have you heard about that?
Yes, yeah. Port of San Juan. There's a bunch of stone anchors at the port of San Juan.
In Puerto Rico, I didn't even know about that, bro. I had one of my listeners messaged me a couple of days ago actually tell me about that. Should have taken pictures, but
Someone sent me pictures and a video of them, and they're in my new Anchors of Atlantis video that just came out a couple nights ago.
Of the
And
anchors in Puerto Rico?
yeah, it's in the middle of the video, like an hour in. There's a montage
Cool.
compilation of anchors that people have sent in to me, viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, dude, that's all I got for the Ingraham Expedition. I listed my sources, and again, you can check out the actual. I don't want to bore everybody with the intricate details of the daily logs, but you can read there what they encountered, and if they did encounter something that they weren't supposed to, or they were looking for something, I mean, we won't ever know. So it's kind of open for interpretation. But do I think it happened? I think it did. I don't, it was just something that's not documented, which, if anything, it gives it more credibility, in my opinion, right? Versus the guy that was all over the mainstream media with it, even if it was done in some sort of secret society way, shady businessmen, right? Trying to extend their lives. Because you had, right, Henry Ford and Thomas Edison hanging out with the Coruscants, and they were trying to do what? They were shocking each other's nipples. Trying to speak to God, was it?
I don't know about that.
FWC.
I know that Henry Ford was like moments away from getting his palms read, and the reader was about to read his palms, and then his like assistant or his handler, Ford's manager, assistant, whatever, came in and stopped it and said, "No, don't get your palms read." He's like, "What are you, crazy? Let these people read your palms." He's like, "You're one of the most, important people on the planet." So he convinced him to not get his palms read, whoever his assistant was. It wasn't Edison, but Edison was probably there too.
Wow. And what was it? And there's so many Henrys. Was it Flagler or was it Plant's second wife, I think it was, that was doing Ouija boards, seances? I think it was Plant, right? In the third or fourth floor in the college there, and supposedly she still haunts the area. So what that is hinting at is that, let's say that these dudes weren't into the occult, but he had a spouse that was definitely into the occult, right? So, and I think it was Flagler too. I think Flagler had one like that too. I mean, I have to reread the stuff again, but yeah, we could do a whole episode on Flagler alone. And
He did, yeah. His wife was into seances too. They were holding seances at the Flagler Hotel at various points in time. And
you could still see her ghost there because she offed herself in that hotel too, didn't she?
mm-hmm.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So again, not saying that these guys were occultists, but that's an odd connection that his significant other was into this sort of stuff, and maybe he was hush hush about it, and then she ended up taking her own life, which is really weird. And I think they had a what's the room with a bunch of mirrors? What do they call that? Is it psychoantium or something like that? Where it's like a room full of mirrors. The psychomantium. Supposedly there was like one of those in one of the hotels too, which is a small enclosed area set up with a comfortable chair, dim lighting, and a mirror angled so not to reflect anything behind, anything but darkness, intended to communicate with spirits of the dead. So
I don't know anything about this.
Yeah, I gotta. My boy told me about it. I gotta find again the source that I read it from, but allegedly that was in one of the rooms, because she liked to do seances. So, and she was a lot younger than him too. So again, I don't know if he was he was her sugar daddy pretty much. She was just a trophy wife, but then she ended up offing herself, and supposedly she still haunts that building. I don't know. And he's the one that had that museum with all the weird stuff, right?
That went into the Alcazar Hotel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. And did you know that one last thing, the the guy that Broward is named after, bro? His name is Napoleon Bonaparte Broward.
Mm.
And he was like what Napoleon.
Well, Napoleon's brother or his stepbrother or his half brother was exiled or retired, you know, so whatever, in Florida, North Florida.
Really?
Yeah,
So 19th governor of Florida, this Napoleon Bonaparte Broward, and he's Broward County was named after him. What a weird name to have, right? I mean, there's so many characters involved in the Florida history. And I just found it really interesting that his dude's name was that.
Australia, man.
This dude.
Was that all?
Yeah, that's all I got,
That's the whole
bro.
thing? Well, that was great, man.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a lot longer.
Forgive my sleepiness, but
No, it's hey, dude. I get it, Longo. You know what I'm saying? When you were brushing your teeth earlier, you know, we all know that the that the doc needs his therapy.
We're here. Vince, 420. Oh, shit, yeah, man. You know how to tip. Vince Duger, no message, 420. Nice. Thank you. Andrew Metheny, can you take Hollins right now? When will you take Hollins again? I have some juicy leads. Either way, keep up the good work, boys. Thanks for the 20, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, Juan did.
You doing another show tomorrow?
I don't know. I gotta look at my schedule. We'll see. I am doing one, but it's not going to be live. A pre-recorded show with someone else.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk. You said something about a monster, like a serpent, getting found on that trip.
Serpent and Moses. So Moses was sitting under a rubber tree, and supposedly had a water moccasin that was bigger than 5 feet that was crawling up his sleeve or something like that. And I found it really interesting, right? Because the rubber tree, that was the whole reason that was it Henry, was Firestone another Henry?
It was Harvey. Harvey
Firestone. The reason that he came down to Florida was because he was looking to plant some rubber trees. And again, he was let me find the I have it somewhere.
Were they robber barons or were they rubber barons?
Yeah. So that's and the idea of that they were going in the Everglades, let's say that they were searching for the Fountain of Youth or something. Thomas Edison, I think in Fort Myers actually has a lab where he was trying to extend his life towards the end of his life. So he was looking for essentially what would be the Philosopher's Stone, you know, the elixir of life to extend his life because he was very sickly. And you can go even today to see his lab, which is set up with everything. So these dudes were 100% alchemists, and that's why. Do I think it happened? Absolutely, I think it happened. Now, the reasoning behind it all and then the secrecy, maybe they did encounter something. Hey, my camera broke, bro. Sorry. Can't see what we found or whatever it was. Because why, bro? What if you have so much to lose, right? Ingram being like this guy who's top of his game. He was 41 when he went on this thing. He's already a wealthy elite. Why would you not send somebody for you? Or you already have a scribe taking down all your information, then why wouldn't you just have somebody substitute for you? You know what I mean? Like, it's like you don't see Elon Musk getting into the phallus and getting shot up to hit the firmament.
So let me ask you this one. Who is the... I put together the thumbnail. So that's distant on the bottom. But who is that at the top? Which native is that?
You know, I don't know who that was. Is that Billy? Is his name Billy? Let me find it here.
That's not a Billy Bowlegs, I don't think.
No, it was a different. Here, I'll tell you right now. Billy Harney? Because that's the only one that... I don't know who that is, bro. I saw that you put that guy there. Where'd you find that?
It was just on some page that had like a list of people that were involved.
Let me find that picture. You're talking about this dude right here, Billy Motlow. Yeah, I don't know who
Billy
this
Motlow.
Old Billy Motlow. Let's pull this up.
Mm.
Member of the Seminole tribe in Florida. References. All right, so let's see here. 6. He's referenced here. Where's he at? See, Billy Harney comes up, but I don't see no Billy Martlow here, and it's highlighted. So it was April 5th. Now, bro, because the only guy that I know that they were involved with was this Billy Harney guy, which is the guy that saved them essentially at the end. And he was the one that took him over to Toodle's house. Tootle, whatever her name was. Well, let's read this dude's bio. So, oldest living Native Americans in the South Florida. He probably was born 1850 in various sources. He was described as a man in his 80s. He would have been in his 80s in 1894. This was in 1892, so he'd be like 70 something or in his 90s. When Billy Harney, here we go, guided J.W. Newman and J.E. Ingraham, they quickly found Billy Motlow there and hired him to assist to their return trip to their secondary expedition group still in the... Okay, so yeah, they hired this dude to go back in.
So he was already like 78 or something.
So he was 80s in 1894. This is 1892. So this dude was old, bro.
And he was roughing it with the young men.
He is described as guardian of the Seminole boy chief called George. He is also described as chief of the Seminoles by James E. Ingraham. When Ingraham hires Motlow to help him with the expedition, he states that this act also secured, quote, the aid of the Indians in future if necessary, committing them to our work. What the? Bro, I completely missed this. In the early 1900s, Motlow trained future Seminole leaders. Ingraham Billy, so here we go. We have the Ingraham Billy. Josie Billy to be medicine man. Several other sources, Motlow was greatly disliked by most people. This is giving me like immortal alchemist, like guardian coming out of the wood to like save them right at the last minute.
It looks like a fucking Naruto character.
And then, bro, this part here. The aid of the Indians in future, if necessary, committing them to our work. Bro, where is this guy at? Hold on. Where is this dude at in these freaking... Bro. So, you're supposed to click the hyperlink and it takes you in the journal where he's at. And I've clicked all 3 of them and they don't. Wow, dude. So typical like indigenous person that they would be dressed like that, no? I mean, and this dude was in his 80s at least. Because he was in his 80s in 1894. This dude was super old. And look at all his other names. Billy Motley, Chief Motley. Wow, bro. Yeah, I even see this guy in here, dude. To be honest with you, because like the Seminole Indians. Willoughby talks about him too, supposedly in his book. April 5th. Where's this dude at? Met with Billy, But then when you click the Billy, it's Billy Harney. Yeah, this is who I saw.
So
Sexy
hey,
this. Good.
you want to give this guy the chance to call in?
Sure.
Let's see what he wants to say. You can continue.
No,
I'll
I just found it
drop
really.
him.
This is the Billy that I found, that I came across. Right, it's just like Billy was a typical name too. By the way, I mean it wasn't. They were all named after, Colonel. Is that Colonel? Right? Is that how you say that?
Yeah, Colonel William S. Harney.
That's who they were named. So Billy. That's what they named. And then the fathers would name their kids like Little Billy or something, right? And then give them like a different last name.
Mm.
So right here, so the group was almost out of food and exhausted. Billy Harney agreed to take the group to Miami via boat. Right here, another Seminole Motlow assists the remainder of the party. Yeah, so when they go back to help him bring him. Interesting, dude. But that's all there is about that guy. There's not much. But yeah, he definitely looks like, like some old sage in the woods, right? That's just like living there, and he's there to protect the dudes. And they find him the very last minute when they're about to starve to death. Interesting. So what connections does this guy got?
Got straight up rescued.
They got straight up rescued. They were gonna die. Oh my bad. I mean to do that.
You're good.
They were gonna die in the Everglades, bro. And I'm always thinking, bro, like when I'm driving down the turnpike or something, you know, I'm looking around and I wonder what these guys encountered back then, right? The wilderness and how unforgiving it probably was, and why Florida was the last frontier to begin with, and why nobody wanted to touch it. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine? Like, they describe the snakes and the gators, that you could walk across the amount of gators that there was when you would shine your torch or whatever, the fire at the very edge of it, you could just see them slithering away. How crazy would that be back then, dude? And like, I've been now to the Everglades, and it's crazy with like modern technology. Imagine having a pole and a canoe.
That would be nuts.
And the mosquitoes too, bro. That'd be wild.
So hey, what expedition was it where the guy mentioned the lack of mosquitoes? Because I always confuse that with this one.
Was that Willoughby?
I don't know. You're the one who I heard that from the first time.
No, I heard that from you, and I think you got it from the document.
No, you told me that a guy was on an expedition in the Everglades, like before the Civil War, I think, and that he said that you could sleep without
without a net.
You could sleep with a blanket and with no mosquito net in the middle of the Everglades in summer.
I got you, bro.
You got it?
Right here. Yeah, I got it here. So yeah, that was Hugh Willoughby, and
Nice.
1887, and he states the word swamp, as we understand it, has no application whatever to the Everglades. That is a country of pure water. That this water is moving in one direction or another depending on the natural topography of the country. That the air is wholesome and pure, free from disease, germs. That near the coast and mangroves the mosquitoes thrive, but deep in the Everglades, in the winter time at least, you can sleep comfortably without a net. And that was in his book. So again, this is the mainstream one too.
Right.
Do
So
you,
yeah, not the summer, but winter time.
do you believe him, bro? I mean, but remember, this is
Yes.
1887.
Yeah.
Haven't they introduced? Didn't you do an episode the other day, the GMO mosquitoes? Is that
Yeah,
something?
we're all well, it's mainly all the stagnant water that we've created too with all the neighborhoods, and every single
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood gets a huge lake
Mm-hmm.
tracking behind all the streets. And there's all these complex waterways that don't move at all or move very, very little. Not like the Everglades.
So check this part out, bro. The details of Willoughby's account, except for the part about the mosquitoes, are consistent with accounts from other explorers and early settlers of the region. So even this dude in the Minchin document, he's talking about like, yo, I don't know about that part about the mosquitoes because they are ruthless here in Florida.
Yeah. We got to get deep enough into the glades
Yeah.
where the fresh water is moving.
And where the pig people are at, bro, that's where you want to go. Where the pig people are at.
Dude,
You
I
got
think
the
it's. I love how you. I love how you started off with the squallies. You're waiting to get your hands on a squally, aren't you?
no.
It's
I
kind
was
of the.
waiting.
It's kind of the perfect package, isn't it?
I was waiting to get my hands on the presentation so I could start off with that. That's what I was doing, bro. I was like, now that I have your attention.
That's why Juan came to America to get his hands on a squally.
Oh, wasn't it because of the Spaniards, the Europeans that the boar is here? Which
Yeah,
I'll have you know
Spanish boar.
is a good source for any Bigfoot or even dogman that have been reported in the area too, by the way. So any
There's one.
cryptid you would be it could sustain itself out in the glades. They're taking over, bro.
A food source, right? For them.
It's a good food source. It's very invasive because there's probably millions of them now, at least. They try to eradicate them, but look at Texas, bro. They've taken over Texas. And the problem with them is that they, I don't like animal violence like the next person, but if it's affecting the food supply, like crops of people, something needs to be done about it. Okay. What's so funny?
Don't mess with Juan's Cheez-It supply, you dirty little pig.
The GMO Cheez-It supply, bananas they're supposed to have like huge seeds, and they've been engineered to.
Juan went to vegan kindergarten, everybody.
Listen, dude. Listen, bro. I'm here for a good time, not a long time ago, okay? I will indulge in the pleasures of this reality, if you will, from time to time. But yeah, I was doing a little bit digging. I try and stay away from dude, seriously though, I stay away from dyes, and I try to eat as organic as I can. Okay? And boar meat is good, bro. I don't know. You've obviously never had it, but it's pretty good. I mean,
What do you mean I've obviously never had it? I've grown up and killed, by the time I was 9, probably killed more boar than you will in 20 lifetimes. Okay.
Listen,
and
dude.
I tasted just about every single one.
I'll tell you what, Longo. The fried broccoli you took me to eat that one day, it was good. I'll give you that. What was it called?
Bang bang broccoli.
A bang bang broccoli. Yeah, that was pretty good. Didn't we go a second time? We only went once, right? I think we were supposed to.
It's all you fucking talk about since you came to Palm Beach, because you're a Taurus. And Taurus is like to rest and tar rant. They like to rest.
And you know what? Eat. You know what's crazy, bro? So my little one, like my youngest one, is a Taurus, right? And my first son, he hates, like he doesn't like to eat. But my little one he's a Taurus, and he's ate more than my 5-year-old has ate since he was even born. Like he's in the little time he's been alive, he's only a year old. He's a typical Taurus. And like, no. And it's funny because my sister's into astrology, and she came over and he was just eating away. And she's like, what sign is he? I was like, Taurus. She's like, oh, typical Taurus. And I looked over at my wife, who doesn't really, partake in astrology or anything. And I was like, I was going to say that, 'cause I've learned it from Longo, but but I mean, you wouldn't have believed me, and she heard it from my sister. But he's the stereotypical little chubby Taurus, and he has eaten more than my 5-year-old has eaten in his entire life at this point. He's like 40 pounds, bro. He's a beast.
God damn.
But I'm a Taurus, and I love food too. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Hey, my moon is in Taurus, so I'm a little bit Taurasian too.
Yeah, my moon is in asparagus. So I think that's why I love asparagus so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is this dude gonna call in? So I'm guessing this guy's not gonna call in for the.
I don't know. He tipped and asked, and Andrew, if you want to call in, I put the link out to call in.
I have plowed through your videos nonstop in the past 12 days. You have some great content. Keep them coming. Thank you, Monica. I appreciate you.
Hang on, no spam comments. We'll just. Thank you, Monica. That's nice.
There you go. All right, let's go. You didn't ask. You misread it. All right, so what else you got, bro? What else have you been up to that we should expect from Dr. Longus? What's next for? What are you at? Almost at 40K, right?
Mm-hmm. 38 point something right now.
When's your next video coming out?
Whenever it's done. Oh, look who's here. I don't think this is the dude, but I guess we'll just take it. Irish videos about the Irish.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
In America, ancient Irish in America.
Now Diston founded Tarpon. I mean, maybe you can have also right. That's the Creek connection, right? That's the Greek connection there, which I don't think he has any. He's from Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Are we gonna let this guy on? I don't know. He doesn't have his camera on. I don't know if I trust him.
I guess, yeah. But trust everyone, man. We'll see.
Trust everyone. Those are famous last words.
What's up, Alex? You got some balls calling in?
I had to, man. I'm so excited for the meetup August 1st.
Wait, you know this guy?
No.
Oh.
What's up, Al?
Yo. But yeah, I'm excited for the meetup in Tarpon Springs. August
Sure, yeah,
1st.
man.
Should be great. And yeah, this has been awesome. I messaged you on Instagram. I was in New Orleans the last few days, just got back, and been inspired to look into the history there. And per usual, you're just sharing that epic content. So thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Any questions? You got any questions? Burning questions?
No, I mean, everything's great. I mean, I'm just continually trying to put these pieces together to really have a coherent, accurate worldview, that can be communicated in an efficient way, to help others expand their understanding of history. And
you kind of sound like Terrence McKenna, bro.
Hey, man, I mean, it's funny. I've definitely indulged.
He does.
In the DMT, which I think really does help. It helps kind of, facilitate neuroplasticity and being open to new information and constantly developing our worldview and history and researching continuously.
Yeah. Well, you sound like a cool guy, Alex. Sorry I doubted you, bro.
Oh, dude, it's all good. I mean, I'm happy to put on my camera here. Let me, it's just, I don't know if
I was just messing with you, bro.
You're in Tarpon?
I'm actually in Ozona, which is Palm Harbor, just south of Crystal Beach.
Nice.
Ozona's cool. I've mentioned it before, how Ozona comes from ozone. And I will say it's really, I loved the other day talking about oxygen, because it's funny. I feel like if there's one thing, I focused on teaching, it would be breathing and conscious breathing and such. So it's really interesting, though, to think of oxygen as, I think you put it, the death molecule, or you maybe agreed with that.
Well, it's I don't know if death is fair. Death is a little heavy. I would say that it's the molecule of material. Because if hydrogen is this uplifting essence, then oxygen, which is ox, right? The bowl, heavy burden, the mother material, madre, the matador, right? That is material, meaning it's almost kind of like carbon. Carbon represents
Yep, I
carbon
didn't want to think in the same way, that decaying process.
Carbon gets a bad rap like that too, because it represents matter in itself, and the fact that light is condensed into matter. So that's why the feminine is like the evil option, etc. But
yeah, that could be talked for another time, because sometimes when the talk about good and evil and just this essence of a duality, it's like, well, masculine, feminine, light and dark, and to sometimes not get too attached to our interpretation of these natural forces.
for sure, man. Alex, bro, I'm gonna see you at Tarpon Springs.
Yep, looking forward to it. I'm excited, man.
We might be getting some Greek food.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Instead of fruit, we usually ask people to bring fruit. We might be bringing some Greek food, but we'll see.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I have a plant collection here, so I give away plants that I like growing. So I have a bunch of mainly papayas, but cuttings of this longevity spinach. Actually came from a daughter of a former, I think she was like a councilwoman for the government at Tarpon Springs. It's all connected. But yeah.
Make sure to bring the ones that are smokable.
Of course. Yeah. Maybe I'll find some Salvia divinorum,
Don't do that.
Right, yeah. Home Depot. Heard Home Depot has that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but for real, I'm just saying, because no matter what, potlucks are awesome and things like that. But I love just sharing the fruit trees, man. You've really shared a lot about oranges and, citrus. It can be really challenging to grow it from, my own experience. And a lot of people have mentioned that. But there's so much abundance we can grow. It's so unique to just think of, Florida being this area, especially here in Pinellas, where you can grow some stone fruits like peaches and apricots that just require like maybe just one day out of the year, to get really cold, chill, and such. So such an abundance of, fruits we can grow, be in the Garden of Eden. So anyways, I'll continue to tune in for a little bit, but yeah, thanks Juan, thanks Longo, appreciate you both. And yeah, I can't wait. August 1st. It'll be a fun time.
Take it easy, Alex.
All right. Peace. Guys.
Good night.
Good night. Peace.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the meetup in Orlando, bro. No? We're not cool enough for the Longo? Why not?
No, I don't know. We'll probably end up doing, if we do Orlando. Disney, yeah, that's tacky. It's like, isn't it like $100?
That's a lot more. It's a lot more than that.
You're not a member. Just one person to go in for the day. How much is it?
I'll tell you right now, bro. I got you.
Don't tell me it's more than $100.
It's more than $100, bro.
For one person to just say, "Hey,
dude,
let me go in. Let me just go."
All right,
in.
So let's go to Epcot. Epcot, right? Let's travel let's a whole new world, right? With Dr. Longo. Let's select tickets, and let's see how much it is. It's ridiculously priced now, bro. So okay, I was wrong. So Florida resident, 3 to 4 day ticket. Oh yeah, it's $69.67 a day, so $209 per ticket. Damn, son. That's a special offer too, right there, bro. So okay, $109 per day. All right, whatever. I was wrong.
That's not that bad. I feel like that's $109 is pretty high. But if it's like $60, that's what I remember it was when I was a kid. It's like $60 like per person.
Yeah, all right, so I might have exaggerated a bit. This is Epcot, though. I don't know how much the other ones are, but yeah, I canceled my annual pass when that thing hit in 2020. I'd gone it a few weeks right before that thing hit.
What thing? Elsa Gate?
Yeah, and then
let's see a show of oranges. Who knows what Elsa Gate is? OG truthers only.
That's some OG stuff, bro.
Elsa Gate. Who knows what Elsa Gate is? Let me see an orange.
Let's
if
see
you know
some
what Elsa
some
Gate.
oranges. Shell yeah, baby. Buckminster. See, Buckminster Fuller, Buckminster, whatever his name is. I'm not good with acronyms. He. There's a reason why he built that ball there, bro. I mean, you got to come, bro. It's like, because if you look at it, bro, the ball at Epcot is like an orange. Okay, so it goes hand in hand. You got to come to Orlando for a meetup. I'm sure you have a lot of people who, on the old world Florida, are in Central Florida. Okay?
I'm thinking for Orlando, there's a restaurant that we could maybe meet at, or we'd meet at a spring nearby.
There's no spring in Orlando, bro. The closest one was like what is
There's a bunch.
it Wakaiva?
No, there's a bunch near you. Kelly Park. You have there's good springs only a half hour out of Orlando. Where's Kelly Park? Look at Kelly Park.
So it's 30 minutes away. Kelly Park, Rock Springs.
I completely forgot we were live on the internet.
Yeah, we're planning the next Old World Florida meetup. I'm gonna make it as close to Orlando as possible. I'm not trying to drive that. And then on a weekday, bro, on a Monday, come on, man. To go to wherever it is you're going, is it you said Tarpon Springs? We need the people in Orlando need it, and I'm gonna be the spokesperson for it. So all of you on the Old World Florida page can thank me later. He doesn't. All right, bro. So homie's not gonna call in. What's the next move? We're at 2 hours. 2 hours and 1 minute, bro.
All right. Well, now it's my turn.
Your presentation. What'd you think, bro? Do you think that there's some shenanigans afoot with this whole thing? Had you heard about it before I told you about it?
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. I heard about Diston, heard about Bland, heard about their secret, behind the scenes agreement.
Yeah.
Hadn't heard about this though. That's interesting. And the first people, it's interesting how they took kind of almost like a straight shot from Southwest Florida down to Miami. I would have thought they would have started at Miami or something.
Yeah, no, it was definitely ballsy, bro. And when you look at it on a map, that's a ride. Because think about it, driving through Alligator Alley, right, from one end to the other. What is that, 75 or something? Or to Miami Trail?
No, that's a 2.5 hour drive.
It's a 2.5 hour drive going straight. These dudes are trying to avoid the sawgrass getting cut up. Gators, snakes, dragons, maybe. I don't know, dragons. And then, you know what I mean? Like it's wild. And then it was weird because, again, according to the journal, it was very desolate. The wildlife was very scarce because I guess the indigenous people. So again, according to a white dude writing it, the indigenous people had hunted all the animals in the area. It was very, very lonely. They couldn't find anything out there to eat. And again, they were gonna die, bro. If it wasn't for old stage over here, Billy, what is it, Motley, Billy Harney and Billy Motlow. Nice. Yeah, I gotta add that to the presentation. The Chief of the Seminoles, which makes no sense.
The last thing I would kind of pile on top of everything you've presented is Ingraham. I've been talking about anchors and the Ingvi rune, and his name, Ingraham. You have your English language, Enki, Incas. Anchor is perhaps the most ancient word known to man. Ancient. Inky, Kur, ancient ancestors, ink, ink, angst. All these words go back to Enki. And Kur goes back to Kur, the first ever dragon depicted ever, or consistently depicted by humans.
So Scandinavian and Old
Oh,
Norse
wow.
origin.
So it is, yes, that's definitely the Ingvi rune. So look at the Ingvi rune.
How do you spell that?
Y-N-G. You're going to love the Ingvi rune.
Like that?
Yeah, like that, or W-I-E. That's perfect. Yeah,
Whoops.
yeah. Now look, it's called the seed. It has two symbols. Okay.
It kind of looked like that thing he had at the top of the building, right?
Boom. Go back. That's one version. That's another. Go to the right one. Boom. What do you see?
I don't want to get this wrong, bro. What do I see?
You see a DNA strand.
Mm-hmm.
You see a
See
square and compass.
Am I reaching when I say to the two fish?
I don't know. I don't see it.
The two fish. I mean, here's
Okay,
the
yeah, I see what you mean. Like they're meeting in the middle. Both their tails are facing up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are some short fish, though.
Let me pull up the picture of the thing that he has at the top of his.
It's the Ingvi rune, though, so it rules like genetics. And,
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
male fertility. It rules male
it
fertility.
reminded me of this for a second. I thought I had, this is definitely like an egg, right? The egg symbolism. This is the Ingraham building.
Oh, yes.
Like some weird. At first, I thought it was like the fleur. Was it the?
That
fleur
is
de
an
lis?
egg. Yeah, that is definitely an egg. And ing is the egg. This is like the Yggdrasil. No N in there, but Yggdrasil, egg. The tree wrapped with a serpent with an egg in the middle of it, big old egg. Lizard egg.
Also, could be
Yggdrasil.
representative of the third eye too, right? Right in the center of the forehead here.
Well, it's also Cancer. Cancer is the anchor too. Anchor. Cancer is the top of the arch.
And this is a portal, right? And Cancer is the portal too, right? Isn't it one of the last? Correct me if I'm wrong, bro. One of the last or first signs, and it's like indicative of a portal.
Yeah, you're wrong.
I'm wrong. All right. Well.
Yeah. Well, it's the
tried.
top. It's the top of the doorway, so it does rule. Something like that.
Well, this is called a portal, bro. They call this a portal.
Yeah.
When it's like an arch like that, and then you have arch Freemasonry where they have the 6-9 at the top. So interesting connection, bro. I wouldn't have heard about this otherwise.
Ingvi, Ingram. And then Ram. So Ingvi and Ram or Raham. Abraham.
So let's see here. Baby name. Raven of Peace or Raven of Anglia. What does that mean? Anglia.
Anglia. I don't know. Ang goes back to Ing also.
So Ing's raven was the Norse god of peace and fertility.
Yep.
Rare. Ancient, interesting, particularly with Yorkshire, England. Its origins Germanic, personal. 7th century Anglo-Saxon. Norman's conquest 1066. Derivation angle. That's kind of like angel too, right? This was a tribal naming the Angles, the people of Englanda in northern Germany who invaded eastern. Interesting. See, this is why I like doing shows with you, bro, because you can like dig deeper than, you know, I'm kind of retarded, so I like that you can, like, hey, that kind of looks like such and such thing. Yorkshire. Edward.
Yeah, what do you think about ingrown? What I think Mark said early on.
Huh?
What did Mark say early on about ingrown hairs?
What about him?
Like an ingrown nail.
Hmm.
Or whatever, just a bad pun.
Yeah, bro, that's a nice weave there. I like that. So definitely.
Like an expedition that didn't, you know, make it all the way through.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't have been saved by old Sage Boy. I don't think they would have made it. They only had 12 days of food, and they were rationing it. And they took a lot longer than 12 days. And yeah, they would have definitely died, bro. They would have definitely died. You can only have so many dad jokes in a 2-hour span, bro. It's all good though. All right.
So yeah, speaking of Snickers break, I'm pretty flippin' tired.
Yeah, dude.
Juan, man, great presenting. Everyone, if you don't, I know everyone knows who you are, but if you aren't already, go check out the One-on-One podcast. Go subscribe to him. Check out his Instagram. Buy his stuff. Buy his merch. Buy his comic book. Get it all.
Just sub, hit like. That's it. I'm all good, bro. I appreciate you, dude. It was fun, and well, I'm sure we'll dig something up here soon again that we can riff off for another couple hours.
Well, I think what were we just talking about? A couple.
The ingrown hair.
Whatever.
You're barbecue, bro.
We had a good topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Already. But thanks, man.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Want me to jump off or are you gonna end it?
I'm gonna end it, yeah, and then we'll talk. We'll talk for a little. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.